The Atlanta Braves drop tonight's matchup, going to 0-6 on the year. We break the whole thing down on this episode of the Braves POSTCAST.
This is the Braves POSTCAST, your instant game reaction for the Atlanta Braves. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into the Braves POSTCAST for the night of Tuesday, April 1st, talking about the Atlanta Braves dropping their matchup to the Los Angeles Dodgers by the score of 3-1. I'm your host, Lindsay Crosby, taking over this season for Grant McCauley. You can follow me on social media on X at Crosby Baseball. He's Jake Mastroianni, host of Locked On Braves. Follow him on social media at Shortstop Ball. And do us a favor while you're there, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when we drop that next episode, when we go live after every game. And on audio, do us a favor, subscribe to the podcast, leave us a 5-star review, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Jake, 3-1 loss, looked to be going well there. Chris Sale, I'm not going to say he was cruising, but Chris Sale doing kind of well. And it felt like the turning point of this game was what happened when you got to the third time through the order. The Braves didn't have a lot of offensive success after Los Angeles went to the pen, but the Dodgers finally figured out something to do against Chris Sale, and it may have been a little bit because of how long he sat before coming back out.
That was the thing for me, and I posted that before, the inning. You had that long top half of the sixth inning where the Braves did get a couple of runners on, but then Ozzie unable to come through there with a big hit to pad the lead. And so Chris Sale sitting there in the dugout for a little bit after, obviously it's the second start of the year. Pitch count wasn't in a terrible spot. And then you bring him back out there to face the top of the order for a third time. You get ahead of Ohtani 0-2, but then you leave a slider too close for Ohtani in those long arms. He does that all the time. You don't get that slider off the plate, he's going to reach out and just poke it into the outfield. So a mistake there. And then he leaves one to Mookie Betts that was just middle. I mean, it couldn't have been any more perfect for that. And Mookie Betts hits it off the top of the wall because, of course, other teams, they get their baseballs to go just over the wall. Meanwhile, Matt Olson is sitting here hitting them off the top of the wall, doubling off the wall. Drake Baldwin getting balls caught at the fence. It's just, that type of bad luck for the Braves right now. But that was the turning point in this game. It was that third inning, or that third time through the order, that bottom of the sixth, Sale going back out there. And look, Sale's your guy. He was, I thought, throwing the ball really well in this game. He looked really good against Ohtani already in this. And again, had him 0-2 and just made a mistake with that slider, made another one against Mookie. But certainly, I think the right call, sending Sale back out there. He's your ace. He's the NL Cy Young winner. And I thought he was throwing the ball well. Unfortunately, maybe because of, the long top half of the inning, just wasn't quite as sharp that third time through against Ohtani and Betts.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to make a mistake, it feels like this is the lineup you can least afford to do it, and that is the spot in the lineup where you can least afford to do it. On the note of Sale doing well, something that I noticed, we saw this when Drake Baldwin caught him in the season opener, and then now again tonight, I think Drake Baldwin's doing a really good job of mixing up what he's asking Chris Sale to do, right? And the broadcast actually touched on this with the last outing, where a lot of fastball heavy early, establishing the fastball, and then getting in there. I saw more changeups today from Chris Sale than I think we normally see in a Chris Sale start. Went to 13 of them, got 8 swings, only 1 whiff, but I believe only had a couple of them put into play and 1 or 2 hits registered off of it. It just feels like Sale is as close to midseason form as you're going to get for any Braves pitcher in the lineup or in the rotation. But Drake Baldwin's really doing a good job of getting him doing maybe a little bit different usage than he typically has in the course of a game.
Yeah, I noticed that in a spring training start too, is that even early in a spring training start, it felt like he just didn't quite have the fastball command, wasn't quite there. And you saw Drake Baldwin kind of pivot and go to the off-speed stuff, which, look, his slider is his best pitch. I mean, it's the one that you want to go to. And I think the changeup's really good. I think you got all 3 outs in the first inning off of that changeup. So it can be a really good pitch for him, especially against those righties. But that slider, obviously, very devastating pitch. So why would you not want to go to it against the lineup against the Dodgers? You want to throw your best pitch. And again, I thought he was rolling. And look, as much as we can talk about, Chris Sale, and we should, and the 6th inning decision, take him back out there. This offense has scored 2 runs in the last 4 games. I mean, that's ultimately what it comes down to. But I thought Chris Sale threw a good game, and you're right, Drake Baldwin behind the plate. I know not necessarily getting into a lot of news on this, but Sean Murphy did start a rehab assignment. Braves might have a tough decision whenever he's ready here in a couple of weeks, because I think Drake Baldwin's given them some of their best at bats, and he's done done a real good job behind the plate.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see what Atlanta does. Small part of me today kind of wondered, can Drake Baldwin play left field? Is that going to be an option just to try to get him in the lineup when Sean Murphy's back? It's going to be something fun, to the point of Murphy's rehab. Caught 7 innings there in Gwinnett, hit a home run, and the goal was for him to catch back-to-back 9-inning games before he could possibly even discuss being activated. So we'll see where that goes from there. I was kind of thinking about that, like, what's the big takeaway I'm going to be talking about from this game? And I wanted to get into the Mookie homer and all of that, but I do think you touched on the offense, and I do think it's going to be how anemic the offense has been. The runners in scoring position thing is now well known. You didn't add any more hits with runners in scoring position today. Your 1 run in this game, like, shout out Mookie Betts, your player of the game, at the big home run for the Dodgers. But you also were responsible for Atlanta's run on a hard hit grounder that would have been a double play. It was instead a throwing error. I can't quite figure out what is with this offense. Like, what is the issue with the offense? And to your point you mentioned earlier, the approaches, it feels like guys are taking more pitches. They're getting deeper into at-bats, but it feels like they're not aggressive enough at getting good swings on hittable pitches in the zone. And how much of that is just coincidence? How much of that is trying to adjust to what Tim Hires is doing? I don't know, but we saw more of that tonight. Even when they did get good contact, they had 9 hard hit balls. They got 2 hits off of it. So is this something that's going to naturally fix itself? Or is this an issue that we're going to be dealing with, talking about for a couple of weeks or even maybe a month or 2?
Yeah, I can't take it for a couple more months after talking about it all year last season. So I hope it is something they figure out. Something I want to really go dive into as we look at the first 6 games of this season is, still had some hard contact, as you mentioned, 9 hard hit balls, but it feels to me like a lot of it, some easy fly outs. And I know this is a team that is built for the launch angle and trying to get the home runs, but that's just not there right now. You don't know if they're just off it a little bit. And look, it's not an excuse for scoring 2 runs in the last 4 games. They are facing some really good pitching, and it does take a while for the hitters to kind of catch up to that in the early part of the season. But this should be a really good offense. This should not be an offense that has a 28, 29 inning scoreless streak that can only muster 2 runs in 4 games and only one of them earned a solo home run. It's just, this should not be happening with this type of offense. With all the talent they have, even with the Profar news, it should not be this difficult for them to score runs. I don't care who they're facing. And again, they are facing 2 really good pitching staffs to begin the season on the West Coast. But I am curious too, and I want to do some more digging into it, see exactly what is going on. Is it too much in their head that they're trying to make these changes and be more patient? And is it taking away some of that aggressive approach that they're so used to? I don't know, but whatever it is, they got to figure it out quick, because they got to start scoring some runs.
Yeah, it doesn't matter how good Chris Sale pitches. If you have an offensive night like tonight, just a handful of hits, that you're not going to be successful. I mean, Atlanta finished this game with 3 hits and 1 run. And to your point, it's not going to happen. They're not going to be successful like this. In just a second, I want to talk about some of what we saw from the defense, because there were some good things, and I had a couple questions about some stuff that happened. We'll do that next, right here on the Braves Postcast. But first, today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. March Madness is here. FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. It's $200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. And Jake, I know like me, you're an Auburn guy. Obviously, they're in the Final Four this weekend. I'm going to be, full disclosure, I'm going to have one eye on Auburn basketball while I am watching the Braves and talking about the Braves like we do. But just know that you can go to FanDuel, all of the action, whether it's on the Braves, the full season, the postseason, or you want to get some college basketball while you're in there. FanDuel.com, get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. Welcome back to the Braves Postcast. Lindsay, Crosby, Jake Mastroianni talking about Atlanta's loss to the Los Angeles Dodgers, the 3-1 deficit there. And you made a good point on social media a little bit later in the game, talking about, if nothing else, the infield defense looked pretty good. And I think tonight we saw, like, Atlanta's only runs came on some poor infield defense from the Dodgers. And Atlanta started Nick Allen in this game. The defense all around in the infield was really good. And Nick Allen happens to go 1 for 3. You can't dramatically shake up this roster or this lineup. There's just no way to do it. But is something like getting Nick Allen in there? Brian De La Cruz did not have a hit, but had some pretty hard contact. Is that something that Atlanta needs to continue going forward just for something different?
Yeah, I think you got to play the hot hand. Whoever's having the better at bats right now between De La Cruz, we'll probably see Fairchild against the lefty on Wednesday, Kelnick, whatever the case may be. Eli White, which his at bats, the few he's had, haven't looked particularly great, but whoever it is, and RC, honestly, I think he's had some pretty good at bats early on too this season. But you got to play wherever you do have those matchups in the corner outfields at the shortstop position. You just got to go with whoever the hot hand is right now to try to spark something. I agree. Brian De La Cruz almost took off Dustin May's head. Unfortunately, goes right to the second baseman, and then fortunately, Mookie Betts helps us out with the error. But as far as the infield defense, it's been great. I mean, Austin Riley's already made a handful of Gold Glove level plays this year. Matt Olson's over there picking everything. And Nick Allen obviously is a stud at shortstop defensively. You can see it. RC obviously strong there. Ozzie had a good play tonight. The arm is still weak and costing them maybe some double plays, but I think he's shown some better range already. The only error you had tonight was Drake Baldwin on a stolen base attempt that he's got to know just to eat that. It's a ball that's down. It was a great jump by the runner. You just got to eat that ball. And that's something as a young guy, probably just trying to do a little too much there. But the infield defense has been great. Look, honestly, Lindsay, everything has been good except for the offense. I think the starting pitching's been good. I think the bullpen outside of the Neris has been good. I think the defense has been good. It's really just they can't score any runs.
The one thing I kind of want to push back on, everything's been good, is I don't want to blame Drake Baldwin entirely for this, because a lot of this is on the pitchers, but opposing teams are running virtually at will on Atlanta. We saw catcher Will Smith, not only a stolen base, but get a great jump. No catcher in baseball was going to throw him out at second base. We saw Manny Machado do it in a previous series. I don't know if this is a coaching point, if this is more on the pitchers. But while the defense has been fantastic, that's been the one area, is the running game, that's been lacking. And Drake Baldwin's arm is not the greatest, but I don't want to hold that against him. To your point, he did make a bad decision on that throw to second base that went out into center field, got Edmund to third. But outside of that, it's got to be more on the pitchers than him. That's the one area I think on defense you've got to clean up a little bit going forward.
And I feel like that's been the thing for Braves pitchers for several years now, especially the relievers. They're just terrible at holding on runners. I mean, as I said, the one for Edmund, he got a great jump, no chance. Yeah. One with Will Smith, you mentioned, and in San Diego, I talked about it. We recorded the other day, just giving Machado a free 90 feet leads to a run. I mean, that has been an issue with this, and it is mostly on the Braves pitchers. They're awful at holding runners.
Yeah, I don't know what has to change there, or if you can make significant changes without taking away something else, but you've got to work out something. Okay, so going into the series finale, 8:38 p.m. tomorrow night, Bryce Elder versus Blake Snell. Hey, it's time to rebound. Listen, you're replacing an all-star Ronaldo Lopez with a former all-star in Bryce Elder. There should be no worries here about this matchup. The question I think everybody's kind of asking, and what they're going to be talking about tomorrow morning, does Atlanta go into the home opener at 0-7, or is there a path to get a win tomorrow on getaway day?
Unless the offense just suddenly wakes up and scores double-digit runs, I don't know how they win the game on Wednesday. I mean, and look, it's baseball is baseball. I never would have thought Chris Sale would lose to the White Sox last year, and they lost 1-0 in that game. I mean, crazier things have happened, but on paper, this just looks like an auto loss for the Atlanta Braves. And Bryce Elder going up against Blake Snell. Again, that's why you had to win the Chris Sale game. You had to win this game. It was your best shot to win in this series. And now you put yourself in a spot where, like you said, there's a really good chance they're going to be 0-7 going back home.
Yeah, and that's a place Atlanta has not been in a long time. We saw some stuff this morning about starting 0-5 and what that meant for your season. I don't think any Braves team that started 0-5 has made the postseason. We'll see what happens at 0-6 and if you can avoid an 0-7. For more on not only Bryce Elder being in the rotation, the Ronaldo Lopez injury, and all of that, you guys make sure you check out Locked On Braves with Jake. He'll be breaking that whole thing down for you. But in the meantime, again, subscribe to the podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the notification bell so you know when we drop that next episode. It'll be on Locked On Sports Atlanta and Locked On Braves. For Jake Mastroianni, I'm Lindsay Crosby. This has been the Braves Postcast.